I'm going to show you a match on a map called EastWatch Alley. The match is Showtime versus Serral finals. It's a second match of the final series, and the tournament is 2018 WCS Leipzig. It's one of the major tournaments that belong to the WCS or World Championship Starcraft 2 series. As you can see, everybody had to go through the group play into the brackets to eventually become the champions. Here you can take a look at the statistics. Serral has been the champion of this tournament and gained himself a ticket to go to WCS or 2018 Starcraft 2 World Championship Series. It's the top and the final tournament of Starcraft 2 during the year. And the first events out here have already started. As you can see, WCS Leipzig has already started. There are other championships that are soon to finish but are not yet finished, and the final roster will consist of winners and players from these tournaments right here. So WCS Korea events, GSL, which is a Global Starcraft 2 league, and as you can see, there are quite a few of these. We can move on, and here you can find out more about these. Qualifier, code S. Let's move on to the qualifier here. You can see who is in here. And let's now move on to code S. There's a lot of money to be made. Group stage 2. As you can see, nothing has been played just yet. There are still many matches ahead, and the money has still be won. It's still out there, right? And these are the players. You can stop the video at any time and look at these closer, or you can Google these yourself and get seriously familiarized with the players that are out here and who will be competing in these competitions there. So as you may have already noticed, this tournament mostly consists of Korean players, and Korea in Starcraft 2 is a top country. So far, Starcraft 2 video game has been mostly part of let's say video game culture in Korea, and it's considered to be a place with the best players out there. So the world and Korea are separate, and that's pretty much how it works. So as you can see here, WCS Circuit and WCS Korea are separated into two different brackets, and these brackets are separated into different tournaments, and people from out of the world will compete against the Koreans and in between themselves in the final tournament that is to come. If you want to see these castings, you have to go on to AndYouLeftTheGame YouTube channel. You can find AndYouLeftTheGame YouTube channel by typing AndYouLeftTheGame into YouTube search bar. Then you'll be able to find my channel. There are two channels that belong to me, and one of these is AndYouLeftTheGame with blank space, and one of them is AndYouLeftTheGame without blank space. Just like that, one without blank space. So you can press on any one of these. You can choose to press on the game and then select my YouTube channel. Now, if you, for example, are prone to see this right here, AndYouLeftTheGame with the blank space, you click on AndYouLeftTheGame with blank space, and it will simply have liked videos. So these are all of my playlists here. So you can press here and then click on my channel, or you can move on to a description section, copy this link right here, move on to the playlist, or most easily just click on the channel, click on to featured channels, and you'll be on AndYouLeftTheGame YouTube channel without blank space. In here you can move on to the playlists and select the game you want to watch. That's, for example, Starcraft 2 or Starcraft 2 castings, and you will be able to find the videos you want to see. Now that we know about the championship and how to find these castings, let's move on to the players themselves. So the first player playing in the finals, match 2, is Showtime. He is a German player. He is a Protoss player. He has accumulated earnings of more than 180,000. You can read about him even more. He, as you can see, dates back to 2013, ESET Masters 2013 Season 1 tournament. So this player is certainly been professionally, or at least professionally enough, playing StarCraft 2 for many years. Here you can see a breakdown of his achievements where he actually won money. That may not be all the tournaments that he played, however, in these tournaments right there, he actually made a lot of money. For example, 35,000 on 2016 WCS Circuit Spring Circuit Championship and the like. Now here's his pictures right here. So now that we have familiarized ourselves with the Protoss player here, Showtime, let's move on to his opponent. He is Serral, the Zerg player. He is a Finnish Zerg player, and he has accumulated winnings of more than $132,000, and he dates back to Wings of Liberty, Copenhagen Game Spring 2012 in April 2012. Heart of the Swarm, and obviously Legacy of the One, which is the current expansion. You can learn about his trivias and interviews. You can watch his matches and find out about his tournaments here. Obviously, he won quite a few big tournaments. And here's his picture right here. That is Serral. Now that you know about Serral, let's move on to the odds. So these odds for StarCraft 2 World Championship Series, Showtime versus Serral, and the Pinnacle Sports.com has given 1.67 odds for Serral and 2.23 odds for Showtime. So if you were betting on Serral, you would make 67% profit. So obviously bookies, at least Pinnacle, has seen Serral as a favorite, and they certainly were not wrong, because as you can already see the score, it was 4-2 and Serral has won the cup and given himself a place in the championship series out there. Now let's move on to the game itself, and let's start this. So it looks like Serral will start by moving his overlord to opponent's base there. He is hotkeying the locations that he wanna go to in the near future. Here, as you can see, he's moving up to the north, and he queued up 3 locations to the north and sending his overlords there to scout on. So what he wants to see there, if Showtime is moving on for any kind of a dangerous cheese or whatever play that there is, so that if there's a need, Serral could choose a good way to counter it. For example, Showtime may choose to play solely air, and then Serral would not need to be player who builds roaches, zerglings. He would need to focus on units that would only can hit air units. In any case, it looks like the 2 bases have been already built. Serral will decide not to go for a super early aggressive play here, I guess, and that's that. It's a sort of a economy focused game. We already see that Showtime has sent his probe here to scout around. As you can see, the early gas is going to give Zerg player a boost in a mineral called gas, and this will allow the Zerg player to get a metabolic boost for his Zerglings very quickly. Otherwise, he may go for a very quick overlord speed, for example, when there are drops, or he may focus on Baneling play and just simply try to break through the opponent's wall off with like 6 or 7 or 10 Banelings, then move in more Banelings inside the opponent's base, blast through the mineral lines, and so on and so forth. So there is most likely a reason why somebody would wish to have a super early gas, but that's mostly due to a specific upgrade. And in this case, as I have suspected, it's a metabolic boost for Zerling speed, and then the Zerglings will be so fast that they can run around the map in a very high speed. They can be sent around mineral lines to continuously scout through, and it's certainly very useful, especially useful when fighting zealots, because Zerglings have to continuously surround opponent, and that's what's about to happen here. Now we see that Serral has chosen to open himself very quick 3 bases, and Showtime has decided to build himself a building right here, a pylon, so that he could see any potential drops coming in over, and in this way he will eliminate at the blind spot there, also known as fog of war. Here Serral has successfully caught these 2 adepts. There are 2 queens per hatchery, so that the larvae would be plenty, and aggressor such as oracle play or adepts would be thrown back, because queens are super tanky. They are advised to be... It's advisable, or there is advice when it comes to Nidus play, to put the queens in first, because they can tank damage so well the opponent would hardly be able to kill off the Nidus worm itself when it's placed, for example, in enemy's base by Zerg. So in the early game, queens very well protect the hatchery, so Lings and zealots are quite good against queens, but air units are not that good. So that's that. In any case, Overlord Speed has finished. Serral has been playing a very economy based game, and as you can see, 3 bases are already built. Barely any troops have been constructed, so I think personally that if Showtime would have been at least a little bit more aggressive, he could have done massive damage. However, if you haven't noticed, Serral has been continuously spying on Showtime with his overlords and his links, so at all times he knew, or was at least feeling it, suspecting it, that Showtime wasn't building any troops, so in turn Serral was just mostly building himself drones. As you can see, this is like, I would personally say, like a super risky play that I personally wouldn't advise anybody to play, because they would probably be already attacked by opponent, and in this time they, as if having a sort of a gentleman's agreement, do not attack each other early game and simply move on to the sort of a late game or a late mid game strategy. So if we would think that late game is carriers, broodlords, then we are at a sort of a end of a late game with hydralisks, corruptors, and on the Protoss side a mothership, a Void Rays, and High Templar, and Archon. So this is a sort of a composition from Showtime. He relies very heavily on Archons, on High Templar, on carriers and a mothership. And if you look at that, it's 6 minutes, it's 4 bases for Serral, and very little supply. They have an incredible amount of workers already built, so 75 for Serral, 68 for the Protoss player, and this was just a really economy focused game. Something very risky to play for anyone playing in the league, I would say so, because there was almost absolutely no serious early aggression. Only now there are, for example, 21 links, 7 hydras and 5 queens. However, the Protoss has only 2 immortals, 2 zealots, 5 adepts, 3 sentries and just 2 air units, which isn't a powerful army for somebody who has 4 or 5 bases, and that's exactly what's happening now. So it looks like they're both choosing to very quickly, in up to 10 minutes, expand to 4 or 5 bases, build themselves a reasonably small force, and invest most of the units, most of the money into upgrades, into buildings, and into workers. So now that all of these have been built, our players here will start building a force, and we will move on to a very quick mid game. So that's going to be hydralisks, lurkers, transport overlords or drop overlords, massive creep, or continuously spread creep. So what does the Zerg player is trying to achieve here is trying to create a bridgehead into Showtime's territory. So that's another half of the map. Now we would have to naturally separate the map into 2, draw a line in the middle, and as you can see, that's what Serral is trying to do, is trying to cross into opponent's mid side. Now you would ask, why would a Zerg player try to do that? That's because on creep, units are much more faster, Zerg units. Furthermore, it looks like this drop has been very unsuccessful, because Showtime had troops there placed, and Serral just barely, without losing any overlords, has been able to get away. So it looks like Showtime is consistently keeping forces in his main base. At the same time, he has a force close to his third and second base. Serral, on the other hand, is attacking Showtime on two areas too. He's trying to make a drop into the main base and attack with the lurkers in the area close to the second and third base. And here is once again Serral splitting his forces in two. Forces consist of Hydralisk, Roach, Lurker, Play, and he's attacking fourth and third base respectively there at the same time simultaneously. So if that's not the case, then Serral is simply moving his units into transport overlords and sending them to the main base. However, this time Showtime has very effectively defended himself, and he is going to harass Showtime at this kind of play as much as possible. It looks like very successfully, with a massive number of lurkers, Serral, the Zerg player, has managed to kill off large number of troops in the south area and between the second and third base, lost his overlords with the necessary supplies. You can see Serral was in the red there, and his job has been a complete disaster. However, here in the south, he has been consistently dealing enormous damage and actually winning. Now the fourth base out there, it looks like just barely Showtime has defended. However, obviously he has defended, and Serral is not really making any gain whatsoever. Now, when starting this kind of economy game, they moved into this mid game very quickly, and what happens here is they're mining. For example, right now Serral at 12 minutes 5 bases, and they already had massive super battles. The hives are being set on close to enemy bases here. The rally points from the hives are set there, and all the newly built units are simply moving in. As you can see, Serral has no overlords that could oversee, so no overseers, and the Protoss player has successfully built himself a mothership. Here we have Serral's army, who have very heavily relies on Hydralisks. However, all these cloaked units from the mothership are going to be very devastating for these Hydralisks, and Serral is forced to push back. In here, another attack is being mounted. These attacks are very consistent. Now, due to that mothership and of course, Serral decides to attack into the second base, and he finds a gap to go through. It seems that the Protoss player cannot mount a very good defense, and here Serral is reigning free. He moved into the second base and tried to take out that Nexus. However, the Zealots are coming in mass. Now that the attack was launched on the second base, Serral decides to send all of its newly built forces to fight in the fourth Protoss base. Here, Protoss is being eliminated, and Serral is up ahead big time because as you have already seen, the main and second base minerals are pretty much mined out to a very few crystals left. So this fourth base is crucial in order to get a consistent income. And on that same time, if you take a look, Serral has an incredible whooping 7 bases, out of which 6 are running full time. And here we find a super clash, so a very powerful Protoss force that relies on consistent storms to control the battlefield, air units to shoot and kill from a distance, has simply pushed Serral back. Now Serral decides to counter this with a massive anti-air unit composition, so a heavy number of corruptors, and he is very successful at it because he killed the mothership, a very important unit here, and it actually is going to successfully call off all the other units. The fourth base of Protoss has been rebuilt, and that means that the Protoss player is getting a much bigger income due to this. However, this income is certainly not as huge as Zerg players, because Zerg player has 7 bases and the Protoss player is only recently recovered after losing the 4 base. Now, due to most likely just that and unsuccessful push in the north, Zerg player decides to fight and take away the 4th base. That's certainly much weaker, and if you look at the supply, you'll see that the Protoss supply is down, and that's most likely due to the fact that Protoss player has been consistently unable to open up new supply depots, while Serral, the Zerg player, had absolutely no problem during the entire game open new bases. Every time Zerg needed more resources, new bases were available. However, the Protoss, unfortunately for Showtime, was losing the 4th base, and without the 4th base the income just wasn't there to build new units that could effectively destroy the Zerg player. That's the end for match 2. The current score is 2-0 for Zerg player Serral.